I have to tell you, I believe that showing up to these types of things, doing coaching is so important in any type of business, no matter what you're trying to do or accomplish. And the reason being is because when you don't show up to these types of things, and when you're not in coaching consistently, you get pretty lackadaisical, right? You just start to go back into the normal way of doing things. And people, when they're trying to achieve excellence in life, and I think that most of you, because of the fact that you're here, you really, really want to achieve excellence. And so many people, what happens is that when they're in coaching programs, when they're a part of an organization like this, when they show up at a certain time every single day, it gets them into consistency, right? Remember, in order for us to see true change, we want to correct the errors of the past and insert new disciplines for the future, right? This is a discipline, being here every day, whether it's 8 a.m. for you or whether it's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., or 11 a.m., depending on what time zone that you're in. It's really, really a great, great way to start your day, right? It sets positivity in motion. It starts good momentum. And it's that way with just about everything. I was actually having a talk today with Jesse, and I was telling him, yesterday I had a coaching call with my students, and one of my former students did a training, and it was funny because it was a very similar training to one that I teach. And I thought, I want to do that again today. I said, I'm just worried. I don't want my personal students to think like, well, she taught that yesterday. He's like, Krista, remember, the first time that you hear something, you're just kind of hearing it. The second time you hear it, it starts to sink in. And then as you continue to hear things over and over again, that's when mastery happens. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Thank you for coaching me, because I needed to kind of hear it at that moment. But it was just a really, really great training. So I thought we would do it today. Now this training today will work for you in real estate for attracting clients, right? Or it will work for you as an agent with EXP with agent attraction. I call it agent wealth building. Okay, so you can have two hats on right now as you're thinking about this training. One is going to be, okay, how can I apply this to my real estate career as far as buyers and sellers? The other one I want you to think about as far as building wealth, long-term wealth, because the strategies work with both. You can just tweak them a little bit, okay? So first question for you, and this is going to be like, I want to hear from you, right? I don't know if you know this, but there's something called natural learning and institutionalized learning. Natural learning is when you engage and you respond and you answer. You are more likely to implement and you learn more quickly when you actually act as if you're in front of somebody and you engage with them while they're teaching. I have a master's degree in curriculum instruction, so I know a lot about teaching. The other type is when someone just like blah, blah, blah the whole time and you just kind of start zoning out, right? So we don't want that. So when I ask questions, whether you answer me or raise your hand or put it in the chat, I want you to respond, okay? Otherwise, I think I'm not a very good teacher and you guys are bored, maybe I'm just not making any headway. So question, how many of you, and you can do this, like, so I can see you, how many of you are not just using, how many of you have a CRM and because we all have, a lot of you have, and you're actually using your CRM the way it's meant to be? Do this for me. Unless you're driving, I want to have you crash. Okay. So I don't see a lot of hands doing this. All right. I don't see a lot of hands doing this. So big secret to tell you. When I was, I hired a company about 6 years ago. And mind you, I've usually sell anywhere between 120 to 169, 170 homes a year. So I'm always usually over the 100 mark. And I've been doing this for 19 years. And so, that's a lot of business, right? So I hired a company about 6 years ago, and I said, they came in and analyzed my business to see where the biggest gaps were. Like, what were the biggest gaps in my company? Where was I making the most money on, and how was I losing the most money? And this is really embarrassing, but you want to know what the biggest gap was? It was my CRM, basically. I had a CRM, one that I won't say that it wasn't very good. And I actually, sort of used it, but we weren't using it to the best of its ability. And I didn't even have a CRM until probably about the first 10 or 11 years in the business. I used Top Producer, I think it was called that, way back when. All right. But I didn't use it to the best of its ability. So I lost a significant amount of business. So what they did was they ended up going through my database, going through all the lead sources that I had paid for. And do you know that about 30% of the people that they got in touch with had already purchased a home, bought or sold, and they didn't use me, right? So ones that were in my database somehow made contact with us, okay? And now that's a significant amount of money. All right. One of my students, John Finley, he may or may not be on this call. He said that basically last year, about 12 months ago ish, he decided to really start focusing on his CRM. Like he was going to, because your average lead close ratio for online is about less than 2%. It's about 1.5%, 1.75% is the average amount of leads that actually get closed. Very, very small percentage. Okay. But John was like, I have so many online leads because he's, knows how to generate a lot of online leads. And he's like, I know I'm losing business because I'm not really responding to these leads appropriately. I don't have great follow-up systems. I'm not inserting new disciplines into my business, and disciplines meaning something that I do every single day, so that I can start working on my pipeline. Okay. Now remember, we've talked about this before, and this is what I want people to really grasp with anything in business, and that's this. And I wish I had a bigger board here. Wish I was out there because I like to use my board. But basically, when you do work, buyers and sellers, we know that the average buyer and seller takes 3 to 6 months, according to the National Association of Realtors. However, I'm in another very high level mastermind group, and they did a study of buyers over a several year time frame, and they found it to be closer to, it was under a year. It was like 357 days, something crazy like that. Like that's how long that it takes for buyers and sellers from the time they first start. Way more than 3 to 6 months. So what do most agents do? Most agents, they focus on low hanging fruit, right? Like, what can I do right now? Somebody calls and they'll leave a birthday party or Christmas dinner to go show a buyer or seller. How many of you have done that? I will say I have done that way too many times. That is for sure Krista. Krista's done that in her life, especially when I first started 19 years ago. I would leave anytime to go work with people. But they forget about the people that are coming into their world, and that are going to buy later, right? And so how many of you have said the word, these are bad leads? They're bad leads. Like, oh, I'm getting these leads and they're bad leads. And every hand should go up, we all have said that, right? Bad leads. Okay. So what John decided to do was to completely change his mindset regarding the leads. And so he, instead of saying, I personally don't like to call people, I don't like to say leads. I like to say people, because every lead is a person. So I don't ever say leads. I say, oh, you're saying that they're bad people. No, they're people that eventually will end up buying or selling. If they don't end up buying or selling, which by the way, they'll end up referring you eventually, right? Referring and that type of thing. Okay. Laura, do you have a question? Oh, sorry. Do you have a question, Laura? Rupal? No. Okay. I saw your hand up. Sorry. So people will end up buying eventually. So what happens is we have to understand is that when we insert input equals what, everybody? Input equals output. However, whatever you put in, eventually you get out. Okay. But in with our efforts, right? We do effort here. We don't see the results until here. Now, pretend this is a much larger board, okay? So from the work that you do here, you don't see the results until here, right? The work that you do here, you don't see the results until here. You get my point, right? The work you do here, you don't see the results that you do here. But what do most people do? They stop right here because they don't see the results that quickly. So imagine if you just kept on going, and then all of a sudden, your line over here never stops, okay? But what also happens is that the further the line goes on this side, right, the quicker it starts to build because of momentum. That's the exact same thing with working with buyers or sellers, okay? When you work with, oh, my thing just fell. When you work with buyers or sellers, I have to get it because my dog will eat it, and it's never good. When you work with buyers or sellers, all right, especially with buyers or sellers, we have to understand that it's a long-term game. It's not the short-term game. It's very long-term. So if we can remember to nurture people, right, all the time here, then all of a sudden they're going to start closing over here, right? And then we're going to have more people in our pipeline that love us because you all do an amazing job. So then the more that we start working with people, then we start getting more referrals, we start getting more repeat business, and then the momentum grows even more. Does that make sense? But so many of you are constantly just going for the low hanging fruit, right? And so John basically said that he decided to change his mindset, right? So instead of saying that the leads are bad leads, he changed his mindset to every lead is a good lead. Another thing you said was that and I'm going to say, don't say lead, say people. Okay. So every leader, every person is a good, is a good, a good lead, right? And every single lead, which is a person, is going to buy sooner or later. So just by changing your mindset and knowing that like every single person's going to buy sooner or later, right? Or they're going to refer me sooner or later, really, really helped him. All right. He increased his conversion, for his online leads from less than 1.5% to 9%. A 9% increase in conversions, which is insane in only 1 year's time frame. Now I want you to ask yourself a question. Imagine if you were able to increase, so this is how you answer this, right? Let's just say last year you can say that from online leads or from any sort of lead source that you got, okay, you were able to do X amount of business. Let's just say the amount is 50 grand you made, right? Or 20 grand or 30 grand. Maybe it's only 10 grand. Now imagine if you did a 9% increase. Instead of only doing 1% of those, now we did 9. Now that 10,000 becomes 90. Right? That 50,000 becomes almost 500,000, 470,000. Make sense? So imagine if you just started to adapt this mindset that every lead is a good lead and every single person will end up buying or selling or referring you later on, as long as you continue to nurture them and establish a relationship with them. Now that's a pretty good mindset, right? You don't have to believe that. Okay. But if you did believe that, do you think that it would serve you better? Everyone say yes, absolutely. It absolutely would, right? Also, when you adapt that mentality, what happens? Instead of you going, oh, that's a bad lead and pushing them off, you're more likely to want to start developing that relationship, nurturing that relationship. And it might take longer for somebody to buy and sell, right? But they will refer you. And if you are marketing yourself online the way that you should correctly, right? Remember, when you commit to consistently producing content correctly, you're going to make a connection. So you're going to convert more clients and customers. Okay. Then if you do what I call the 5 R's, refer, retain, resell, right? You get those through rituals and routines. If you have proper rituals and routines, you're going to retain more clients. They're going to refer you more and they're going to resell with you. Okay, so let's talk about what our rituals and routines look like. One thing that John said he does is that every single day, John will call. Okay, he'll call he tries to do 2 hours a day. But let's just say, and if you guys know about my teaching, I use the Pomodoro technique, but let's just say you committed to, because doing 2 hours of calling a day is pretty much like torture to most people. Like for me, it would be torture. I could not do it. I'm just going to be very honest. No. It ain't happening over here. All right. But to do 2 25-minute blocks of a Pomodoro technique of calling people, I could do that. I could do 2 25-minute blocks. Now, what I would recommend if I was with EXP is I would have one 25-minute block be for buyers and sellers. I'd have the other 25-minute block be for my agent wealth building, for agent attraction. That's personally how I would do it. Okay, because I believe that the long-term results of the agent attraction is going to far supersede just the short-term benefits of buyers and sellers. But we all know we need money right away. Our first and foremost goal initially is to sell, right? But once you start understanding the benefits of, wow, this residual income, then you're going to want to make that part of your priority too. So imagine if you just adopted a new philosophy that every lead, which is a person, is a good one, and that they eventually will buy or sell or refer you. And then you just started adopting new rituals and routines of getting on that phone. Now, here's the thing. If you're utilizing the Pomodoro technique, I guarantee you that you're not even, if you do 2 25-minute increments and they're specifically geared towards nurturing and calling back and all that great stuff, you're not even going to notice the 2 25-minute increments. You won't. If you're doing the Pomodoro technique as often as you can, those 2 25-minute increments will not even, you won't notice them. You won't feel like you've lost any time if you're utilizing the Pomodoro technique correctly, because that will save you 16 hours a week of time, right? You'll have 16 additional hours of each week of time just by utilizing the Pomodoro technique. But the results that you'll get from it, from the consistency, from the rituals and the routines, will far supersede. If John was able in just to increase his business in 12 months by 9% of all of his online leads, imagine what's going to happen in year 2, 3, and 4, remember this. Imagine 1 year of doing that. What's going to happen the next 2 year? Does it make sense? It's just going to start building and building and building. Do you think it was easy? It's easy for John. There are days when he's like, I don't want to call. Like, I just don't feel like calling. It's not fun to call. I'm not excited about calling. Of course there are, right? But if he reminds himself about the $475,000 additional dollars that, which is what it was, ish, right, John? Which was at 9% equated to, it looks pretty fun to call, right? Now, after doing that for 10 years, that's $5 million more that John has made because John had rituals and routines and he changed his mindset. He said the biggest aspect that helped him more than anything else was just changing his mindset. Okay. Let me show you now. Let me get this to. Okay. Let me show you just a graph that this will help you as far as timing goes and really kind of staying on top of people. So this was actually pretty eye-opening to me. I taught this training a while back. Okay, so this was a study that was done from MIT. All right, response time from initially being exposed to somebody. Okay, within a 5-minute increment. If you take your likelihood of you getting in touch with somebody decreases 100 times from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. 100-time decrease. The likelihood of actually getting in touch with somebody. Okay. The qualification rate from 5 minutes to 30 minutes also decreases by 21 times. By 21 times. Sorry about that. Okay. So it tells us that we need to call people back. This was also very, another study from Harvard. All right. From a three years of data, 15,000 unique leads and 100,000 calls attempts that were made. What they found out was the best days to make contact were Wednesday and Thursday. You have a 49% difference in success between Tuesday and Thursday of actually getting in touch with somebody. Okay. And the best times to call were between 4 and 5 p.m. And the second best time was between 8 and 9 a.m. I guarantee you that none of you between 8 and 9 a.m. are meeting with buyers or sellers. So that'd be a great time for you to call. Right? Best time to call. This was also very important. And it was very similar to the MIT study. Response time. Best time was within 5 minutes of calling people back. Contact and qualification rates dropped dramatically in just minutes and continued to decrease over the next few hours. You have a 400% decrease in odds of qualifying just between 5 and 10 minutes. 400% decrease in just a 5-minute increment. Now, this is, again, from Harvard of over 100,000 call attempts, but this is one of the craziest things that I thought. Persistence is key. Over 30% of leads are never contacted at all. You should always make at least 6 attempts before you leave a voicemail, right? Or a text. I'm not sure I believe the text thing so much, but hey, it's Harvard. I'm not Harvard, right? By making a few extra calls attempts, sales reps can experience up to 70% increase in contact rates just by making a few extra calls. The magic number, quite frankly, is 12. According to them, it's 12 times to be calling. But the fact that so many people never call at all, and the average person, because I have a longer training on this, the average calls that most people made was under 2, which means that some people didn't call at all. The rock stars, some did 6, but under 2. Remember, it takes at least 6. They're saying, but the magic number was 12 attempts. Now, most of us are so nervous about calling 12 times. Now, another thing that John talked about was that he found himself, a lot of people will just get on the call to call, right? And they start to sound very robotic and they're trying to get through their questions. And he realized that the more curious he was, right? He says, not ABC, always be closing. He adapted the mentality, always be curious, right? Always be curious. John is now getting on the call. So John, I'm talking all about you. Jesse is trying to jump in. Does he want to talk? Evelyn, is that what you're trying to say? Jesse's in.
Yeah, no, I was trying to talk. I don't know if you could hear me, Krista. Could you hear
Oh,
me?
go ahead, Jesse.
I don't want to. I'm almost in my office, so I'm still driving. But I wanted to comment on the text thing. If you look at the year of that Harvard study, because this study's been cited a lot, I forget the year because I'm driving. But what year was that study from? I think it's like 10 years old, correct?
Let me see here.
I think it's
If you you can find it later. Regardless, the texting has changed. So the concept of everything she's teaching is spot on. The amount of context, everything else. But in terms of the world of texting, if you think about how people text versus call these days, we can do another training later and dive into the ratio of text versus phone calls. So just sub in the words when you say phone call. In some way levels, it's just
Text.
contact, right? Krista's spot on all this. I just want to make that note on that because that I agree with you, Krista. It's like it is Harvard, but like, dude, the world's changed in terms of
Yeah,
text
I'm not
versus
sure I
phone.
believe that. I did need to look at the date because texting is cool. Is so like everyone, it's just easy, right? And also video text messaging. Like I'm going to tell you this one more time about video text messaging. I will tell you that I hear every single day. Yesterday, I heard 3 times from my students that just doing video text messaging has picked them up a significant amount of clients, right? And that takes 20 minutes a day. A significant amount of clients. I mean, it's amazing just by doing that one thing. People love the video text messaging. So if you learn one thing from today, it's pick up the phone, don't forget to nurture people, and start video text messaging, right? You will pick up new clients, especially if you commit to new rituals and routines, right? You implement new patterns, get rid of the errors of the past, and insert new disciplines for the future, and do it on a consistent basis. All right. So my yesterday, one of the things I talked to my students about was, hey, and I want to get you guys a free link or a link to a training that's next week I want to tell everyone about. So don't let me forget about that. I haven't gotten it yet from my team. I'll make sure she's sent it over. Perfect. Yes. So is that think about when you can start doing this, right? And no one likes, I'm not saying to cold call. I do not cold call ever. It's like the worst. I hate cold calling. But when you're calling people that have, called you, or people that have at one point sort of, entered into your world, and you're just continuing to call them back. Right. And John also said that it took only about 1 week, because I said, oh, how, was it difficult for you to call? He's like, at first it was, but it only took about a week. And after a week, I was already comfortable. Okay, I was already comfortable. And always be curious, meaning he asked a lot of questions and really listened. Didn't just ask questions to ask questions, but he asked a lot of questions of the people that were on the phone, made amazing notes, and put them in his CRM. If you have a CRM, which most of you do, right, and you use it properly, the CRM is going to start working for you, but it should never, ever replace you. A CRM can never replace you picking up the phone, doing a phone call, doing a personalized video, it can't replace you. You've got to insert yourself into it. And I can't tell you how many times I've been interested in something and I've made the call, but I just didn't have the time to hit the trigger, right? And there's been like a great salesperson that kept in contact with me for like 4 months, and I'm thinking, man, you're awesome. Like, if you're going to give me this great a service after 4 months, I'm definitely going to be using you. They are thinking the same thing, even though they might seem annoyed, maybe a little bit at first. Once you break the barrier down, you start talking to them, you're kind, right? You really are curious, you ask questions, you give them value. Remember, serve, don't sell. That's where the questions come in. So the more questions that we can ask people, the more that we can lead with value. The more that we can lead with value and truly help somebody, I'm looking for that thing, the more that we're not going to be seeming annoying. So when you're talking to people, right? When you're talking to people, the question is, what are we listening for? We're listening to see what it is that they need, what's important to them. Okay. And then we make sure we insert that into our CRM. And then the next time we call them, if you say, hey, you told me that you were really interested in school scores, like it was really important that you had, very good school scores. Well, here's a list of school scores with, 8 and above. And here's the neighborhoods associated. I thought you might like that. Right. So if you're listening, you can lead with value. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here for a second. You guys can ask questions, but I wanted to give, I'm doing I'm speaking at a conference, a training. It's free. There's a free version of it on, nope, that's not it. It's the Hyperfast Agent Summit. And I thought this might be, you guys might want to do it. It's 3 days of training. Day 3, I think is you pay for day 3. Again, I don't get anything by you. Actually, I think I might, but by going to this, it's 3 days of training from agents across the country who are selling a significant amount of real estate. So the nice thing I like about this group is that anyone that they have speaking or training or coaching at this virtual event is actually doing a significant amount of business. They're not coaches that do not sell. They actually sell. They've got a huge team, and they have all the speakers that are speaking are agents that have produced a significant amount of business. So there's a link right there if you'd like to click on that. There's a free version that you can go to. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's all day long. Again, it is virtual. So I told them that I would go ahead and post this in here for you all today if you guys were interested in going to that. Okay, so let me see. We got some hands raised.
And I want to do one thing, Krista, because we got 2 minutes. So I want to do one thing. Can I give an actionable homework? And by the way, guys, we know you could spend all day going to trainings. We obviously know you need to go out and work with clients and sell houses. We just like to tell you about all the cool trainings. Like this hyper fast conference is going to be rad. I'm super excited. Anyway, type in the box. I just wrote down 3 things. I'm going to click enter right now. Serve, don't sell. Always be curious, and the fortune is in the follow-up. Krista didn't say that one out loud, but that's what I was thinking in my head as she was talking about this. What did you take away from today? I know she's got some questions, but type in the box. I want you to take away something actionable that you're going to actually use, unless you're driving. If you are Terry and you're driving, do not type Terry. Everybody else, type it in.
And I would say one more thing, Jesse. I want you to ask yourself, like, okay, you know, if calling is nervous and uncomfortable for me, if I just do it first thing in the morning, right? Like in the morning, I get up, I do my first 10 video text messages, I call for 25 minutes. Let me just say I commit to myself and I'm going to do that for the next 30 days and let's see what happens. And remember, it does take time. Like John said that too. He said, you know, it takes time. It wasn't like I saw the results right away, but he had a 9% increase just by changing his mindset that all leads were good leads. They will all buy or sell later, right? And, you know, to be curious and to lead with value. Value. So now a matter of with all these calls, and here's why we don't want to every single time we meet with you and do these agent huddles is give you something brand new to do because you won't do anything, right? We got to be really careful. So this is really a mindset, pump you up, get you excited, get you knowing that you can do this. But what are you going to start doing? What actions are you going to start doing that are different to see a different result? Right? Because you can show up here all the time, but if you don't actually implement, nothing's going to change. Right? Now, John, if you're here, and I know we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to say, what do you think it was that made you decide, you know what, like I have to change? Like what made you decide you wanted to change?
Well, I mean, for me, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. So I was getting leads come in, I was getting contacts with people, but I was not getting results. I was not converting. So I wanted to increase my business. I wanted to do better. So I had to figure out something that I could do. So I just decided you have to give more than you're giving right now. Something has to change. So you've got the first part of it, you've got leads coming in, but you're not doing the second part. So something has to change. And so it was just basically, I wasn't getting the results.
And 9%, that's a huge increase in the business. Huge increase. Right. Good. Okay. Yes. And results like 9%. I can live with that, right? That's just the first year. So again, there's the link. Click on that. It will get you. I would say click on it right now. They're going to start putting you on their nurture sequence. You're going to get a really good example of what proper nurturing and follow-up looks like because they are kings and queens at doing that. There's a lot of amazing speakers that are there. We've actually, Tristan Mahab, I don't say his last name, but he's one of the speakers there. And he was actually on the Agent Power Huddle. He owns Lab Code Agents. He's speaking. So it should be a really, really good event for you.
Watch this, Krista. Everybody raise your hands if you learned something today. Raise your hands. Okay, then watch this. Raise your hands if you already clicked on that link to check out the event.
Good. Smart.
Look at these action takers. All right, how do you want to wrap it up, Krista? What do you want to leave them with?
I want to say this. Money like speed. Okay, everyone. Money like speed. Agents and people that take quick action, okay, they make more money. Why? Because they don't just think about doing things, they go. Money like speed, money like speed. Next week, I'm going to talk to you about the elapsed collapse time frame. Okay. Why rich people are rich and why poor people are poor. So I'm going to give you a little bit of sneak peek as to that. That's what I'll be talking about next Wednesday. At least I hope I'm going to teach next Wednesday, Jesse. I'm going to be at that thing until like midnight. So I'll try my best.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, guys. Enjoy your day, everybody. Friday, we've got a woman who's going to teach a pipeline tool that is going to help you guys piggyback on this. Krista, this is amazing. Have a good day,
Michelle, did you
everybody.
have a question? I forgot about it. Your hand's been up the whole time. Did you have a question? I'll answer it. Okay, sorry. Her hand was up.
Post it in the Facebook group. If you have a question, we're 2 minutes over. Post it in the Agent Power Huddle Facebook group. Tag Krista. She will answer it there.
Hey there. I have a brand new podcast called Fired Up with Krista Mashore, where I bring my high energy right to your ears. This podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. So do me a favor, go subscribe and leave a review. All this information is free and I cannot wait to teach you everything I know. Thanks so much for watching my video. You can learn more about how to be a successful real estate professional by watching other videos that I have. And be sure to subscribe to my channel. And as always, make it a great home selling and buying day.